YQNA. In the interest of juggling a full evening, I think we're going to actually start this evening with a presentation for Harbourfront Centre. Massimo Di Maria, are you ready to come on up? You're welcome. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
I'm Massimo. I'm the head of operations at Harbourfront Centre. For those I haven't met, there's lots of familiar faces in the crowd, so nice to see you all this evening. And with me, I have our site operations, senior site operations manager, Joanna Sorelli. So please welcome her.
Hello, I see some familiar faces.
So I always like to try to bring some of the familiar faces with me. I wasn't able to attend the last meeting, but always a voice and a person that you could reach out to. Of course, I'm always available as well. So I'm going to start off with a little bit of a summary of our past winter. I guess we're technically still in winter. It doesn't feel like it today, but and then we're going to move through with some of the different things that happened through the course of the year and what's up and coming. So we're going to start that off with a video, I believe. That was just a little slide deck that our marketing team put together. I thought that was quite nice. It was a piece that our marketing department put together. So just going to go through some of the programming highlights. We had Kumba this year. It was our 31st year, the Kumba at Harbourfront Centre, and it's a flagship Black Futures Month festival, one of the longest running ones in celebrating Black arts and culture. The program showcased music, dance, spoken word, visual arts, and wellness programming, providing a platform for Black artists while creating opportunities for the community gathering and cultural dialogue. So it was a very busy month, and it was a very successful one for those who may have joined some of the programming. This is another little video we're going to put up that you can take a look for the winter. So, did you want to take the slide from here?
I really don't need this.
No.
Okay. Hi, everybody. I just want to give you a little bit, some updates from, as you can see from Massimo's already 2 slides. It's never a dull moment at Harbourfront Centre. Always something happening. So this winter, I first want to say thank you to the whole community for enjoying our rink. We had a partnership with Canadian Tire, and then through that we had a bigger and better ice rink this year. So that we were able to have more programming for all of the community and schools around us. So just some images that we have there. If you want to go to the next slide. One of the great things that we did with Jumpstart and Rock Solid Productions is we brought the schools to the rink for curling. So it was really, really amazing to see. They didn't put skates on or anything, obviously, for curling, but they had a great time just using the rocks, and they were plastic, and having them go through half the rink and actually having a curling game. So that was a lot of fun for the schools and for Jumpstart to be part of that. Some of the other programs that we had. Deputy Mayor was amazing.
Yes, just a shout out to Deputy Mayor Ausma Malik for making all the rink possible. With all your support, none of this would have been. And it was a wonderful day. I unfortunately was not able to be there. I was away on a trip with my son, but it was a great night, day event actually, and there was refreshments and some great opportunities to sign in. There's a lovely picture of a resident. Her name is Valerie, and an artist as well. I don't know if she's here tonight.
No,
but
she didn't come.
She didn't come, but what a wonderful person, such a great supporter, and a great story. And I know that she made you that painting because I've spoken to her since, so it's fantastic. So design recognition. This is an exhibition that we had going. It's called Traces Exhibition. And it's just a shout out, an accomplishment from our craft and design. But we were featured, the exhibition was featured in the Azure magazine as one of the top 10 events for the 2026 Design TO Festival. And that's a pretty remarkable piece for us to be part of that. So I just wanted to point that out to the group. So campus improvements and site revitalization. This I don't have to read. I know this one quite well myself, but we have quite a few things going on. We're getting prepared for a really busy season ahead, as we move forward, I'd like to kind of just point out that we're going to be doing a lot of critical infrastructure work, repairs to a much needed campus that needed work done maybe sooner in many cases, but in the next slide it knocks off a few of those pieces. So in Canada Square, that's in the previous image, the Canada Square is south of our property, closest to 207, the terminal building. That whole piece of land there is really outgrown, not been really well maintained over the years. So we're going to be revitalizing it, pulling out all the weeds from those beds and remulching and cleaning it up so it's a little bit more inviting. Power washing it and all it's going to get pruning, etc. There's a bunch of unipavers that are small. The potholes, not only the city has a problem, so does Harbourfront. We have sinkholes that are happening along some of the seawalls that we're trying to deal with. We have some money going towards those repairs along the south side of the Amsterdam Brew House. There's lots of sinkholes. So that whole laneway is going to be dealt with this spring, along with the South Commons, where there's some landscape work and public space improvements. And that's that piece. There's also some work going on in our marinas. The marinas are getting some much needed attention. We've been working on them for years, trying to replace a lot of failing docks and finger docks that the boaters use, and washroom facilities, and pretty much anything to do with the facilities. So we have two main dock runs in the Marina 4, Pier 4 Marina by the Queen's Harbour restaurant. That's going to be receiving some much needed infrastructure changes during the spring. That should be completed by the end of May. And so that's an important piece for us, and we also did a lot of repaving along our marina at Marina Key West at 539 Queens Key West. That was a whole lot there that had to be repaved. That was in really bad repair. So we've been doing a lot. We have a lot to do yet, but it's going to be a busy spring. We're going to start seeing a lot of mobilization for construction starting towards the end of this month. There'll be more someone else speaking to the bridge, so it is on a slide, but I'm going to skip through it just so you know. That is also forthcoming in this in these changes.
I'll skip that one.
Yes. So the World Cup 2026. Now, Harbourfront Centre. We are not an official site of FIFA 2026. It's important people understand that. However, we are within a few kilometers of the BMO field, or the Toronto field, I believe they're calling it. And that puts us in a high traffic place. So we expect to see over 300,000 people visiting for FIFA, and visitors are probably upwards to 3 million. So we're going to see a lot of traffic on the waterfront. We're a central place. We recognize that. This is why we're trying to get ahead of all this infrastructure and fixing our stones and walkways and beautifying spaces. So while we are not an official, we are going to act the part. Let's put it that way. So there is work. There is that's going to be happening on the south lawns, as we're going to put in the next slide. There is a outdoor futsal soccer pitch, and this is pretty exciting for us that we're able to bring this forward. This is in conjunction with Jumpstart, Canadian Tire Jumpstart sponsorship, that we're able to bring this forward. So we're quite excited about that. It's still in the permitting processes, and it's going to hopefully get to start. Some repairs badly needed on that turf area. So looking ahead, artist recognition. So CBC Arts, in our Textile residence, we had a resident there that was selected by CBC Arts and Design, their logo, which is pretty impressive, and we thought that we wanted to do a shout out to Khadija Aziz. I hope I said her name correctly. Summer recreation and community activations with Canadian Tire Jumpstart. So we're building on winter success. Harbourfront Centre will expand summer recreation programming with Canadian Tire Jumpstart charities. That's something that we're really building out, and it's not 100% completed, so more to come on that front. And we continued sponsored reinvestments, so ongoing investments from major sponsors, including TD Bank, TD Bank Group, Labatt, Royal Bank of Canada, and as you know, Canadian Tire Jumpstart. They're big supporters of Harbourfront Centre. And the Shaw Festival. Harbourfront Centre will be hosting performances from the Shaw Festival as part of the Waterfront programming. This is a professional theatre company. It's the first time that they're ever coming out of their home, and they're coming to our home in Toronto, and we're very excited to have them here. I will tell you that the first show, and I hope I don't get in trouble, I'm on film, is The Christmas Carol. So we're pretty excited about that. There's going to be more shows, but I'll let you guys know that. If there's any questions, I'm happy to take at this moment in time, or move on. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, now that your wonderful Kathy Loblaw has left, is there any news on the new CEO?
Yeah, the question was, do we have any news on the new CEO? As Kathy Loblaw has left Harbourfront Centre, at the moment I do not. I do not have anything further to share with you this evening, but I'm sure as soon as we know, we'll reach out to our friends here. Any other questions? Yeah.
Sorry, the
Yeah.
infrastructural improvements that you mentioned, are they all going to be done by the end of May timeline, or?
Yeah, so that's a good question. All the infrastructure work that's happening, what is the timeline for completion? And our objective is the end of May.
Thank you so much.
No, that's a very good question. Thank you for pointing that out, Dorsa.
Question over here.
Yes.
Yeah, just wondering, a really important question. Are you going to be showing the World Cup games at Waterfront Centre?
Oh, he put me on the spot, didn't he? So our wonderful friends in our programming department are working on trying to make that happen. I'll tell you this much. It's in our wish list. Yes, please.
You sort of glanced over the Amsterdam Bridge slide. Is there anything to report?
Yes, there is. But I'm going to leave that to the Deputy Mayor's office, who's going to speak more to it. Okay. Anyone else? Thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks so much, Massimo. Sorry for being late. Most people are aware of a little spate of news stories over the weekend that have to do with the airport and the possibility of
Nice.
sorry. There you go. Most of us are aware of the state of
Oh, yeah, you guys, sorry, I should have told you, it's an on-off mic.
Oh, it's an on-off.
So you gotta flick that thing.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, now you can hear me. All right. Most of us will have read or seen some of the stories about the airport. Obviously a concern for the local community. Some of us are here who spent, I don't know, 2.5 or 3 years or something dealing with it a long time ago, 10 years ago or so. So we're interested in that, and we're very pleased to have Ausma here. Our local councillor, who has been involved in that, has done wonderful things for us, such as the aforementioned skating rink. So without further ado, let's have Ausma up to talk to us about whatever she wants to talk to us about.
Thank you very much. This is such an amazing turnout, and always so grateful for how engaged the community is here. How's everyone doing tonight? Good. I hope you did get a chance to enjoy the beautiful weather. How many of you were out there this weekend? How many of you are enjoying Harbourfront, the waterfront, our beautiful parks? There's no shortage of ways to enjoy the good weather in the city, and I do want to just start off by, can we give another big round of applause to the Harbourfront Centre? It's been such an amazing kind of collaborative effort over the last couple of years, really. You know, we love the Harbourfront Centre, and I know for a long time we've been looking for that opportunity to kind of ensure that the potential for that relationship, for our commitment and our engagement with it to be really successful, and to really draw on the expertise and the care of this community. And it has been so amazing to have had Kathy's leadership in demonstrating how that's possible. And to Massimo and the team, a really incredible team there that has carried that forward. And I'm so proud of, you know, the work that we were able to do together to close the gap to ensure that seasonal skating came back last year. And just really incredible leadership in making that connection with Jumpstart that has expanded and unlocked the potential for that space. And we're hearing it over and over again, and that really has been so remarkable. I have a few different places where I jotted down notes as I was on my way to this meeting. News continued to break, so I tried to make sure that I jotted down everything that I wanted to share with you. And I guess I will just start off by again thanking the whole leadership at the Yorkie Neighborhood Association. Can we give it up to Ed, Neil, Ula, to the whole team here that pulled this together. I know, and I've represented this community as a school board trustee, and now very proud to be the city councillor in this area, and also Toronto's deputy mayor, that the YQNA is a champion on our waterfront. And it has been such an incredible honor to be able to work together and to continue to do that work in this role, because that history of advocacy is very powerful. And continuing to build on that in our work together has been incredible. And I'm very proud for us to be able to do that, and committed to working to continue to strengthen that. I will start off with the Island Airport, as Ed mentioned. That news has been breaking and continuing to roll out, and I know that it's been of great interest and concern to me, and I want to be able to share with you kind of you know, where I am and what we kind of know so far. You know, you have heard me say this before, and I will say it again here, that any significant decisions on the future of our downtown, of our waterfront, of the Island Airport have to be done openly and publicly through a transparent process. That is something that I have been firm on, and that I continue to be. And that is also how we have worked together as a city with the federal government for decades. And we have done that successfully. And of course, it has required us to be at the table, to have tough conversations, to negotiate, because what we are trying to do is work in the best interests of our city and the communities in our downtown that are the home, that are the front door of this, of the airport, but also because our waterfront is a shared city asset that we care deeply about from one end of the city to the other. And that is so important, and that always has been the priority. And our processes have to be able to follow that, and I continue to be firm in that stance. And especially as the local councillor for our central waterfront, I believe that we have to build a city and a waterfront where we can confidently and safely work and live and enjoy. And that's for us who call it home, and for everyone who comes through our city and loves the waterfront as much as we do. And everyone who should be able to have that experience without a question. And so for me, any discussions of changes to the island airport have to align and support the city's vision for that type of waterfront. We have to make sure that it aligns with our vision for what is vibrant, for what is livable, what is sustainable, and that includes our very important priorities around housing, around economic development, around the public realm and recreation and our green spaces, and of course when it comes to traffic and transportation that is related to that too. Those are all incredible and unmovable priorities for us, and any decisions that are made, again, on our waterfront for our downtown and especially around the island airport have to align with that. And we know that there is a process in place that has been agreed to by the parties of the tripartite agreement, which are the city, the federal government, and the Toronto Port Authority. The Island Airport Master Plan review will not be unfamiliar to you, and that is a commitment that the city has made to engage in that process as well. And as you know, and I will share with you. I have been working to gather as much information as possible about the most recent kind of announcements and the pieces of information that we are hearing through the media and through other engagements that have been made by the provincial government, and to understand what the implications of them are, and that is very important. And I know that there is important work that we're doing also with our MPP's office to kind of make sure that we're gathering the information together and understanding what is being meant by some of what has been put out there. So that is the work, and as Ed mentioned, this is an evolving issue, and one that we will stay close on with you. But my commitment remains firm to our democratic voice, to an open and public process that is transparent and that aligns with the best interests of our city and our waterfront, and especially our downtown and waterfront communities, and of course that are about the future of our city, and this being such a critical asset in our city, our waterfront, and it has to be safe, it has to be sustainable, it has to be livable, it has to help us support our housing and our economic development goals and priorities as a city as well. And that is really the top line of how we're approaching this as it continues to unfold. And of course, I'm always happy to take questions about this. And we also know that the airport isn't the only important city asset and concern that there has been news about over the last couple of weeks. Some of you may have also seen the news about the Metro Toronto Convention Centre. And I've shared this in response to some of the media reports as well, is that I have been supportive of the Metro Toronto Convention Centre's redevelopment on its current site. That is something that I think is really important as we continue to strengthen our position to be a global leader when it comes to large events, to conferences, and to tourism. And I have been engaged with city planning and the developer around what that plan on that site might look like. And so the recent speculation about other locations for the Metro Toronto Convention Centre that was shared in media reports and at some recent events did come as a surprise. And as chair of Exhibition Place, I have said, and I reiterated what I shared in the fall alongside the CEO of Exhibition Place, Don Boyle. We said then in the fall, when Exhibition Place was included in the provincial government's Rebuilding Ontario Place Act, that Exhibition Place is city land and a city asset, and any unilateral moves to seize it must be challenged. And that has been very clear and underscored by me, and I reiterate that again. And any proposals for Exhibition Place, whether it's this or any others, without city consultation and without thorough consideration, actually put the 365-day-a-year operations of Exhibition Place, including the CNE, at risk. And we just cannot have that. And the Exhibition Place board and staff have been working on renewing the plans for the site in a way that is with city consultation and that is thoughtful to advance improvements to the site. And there is a new concept plan coming forward that does take into consideration, of course, economic impact, but the potential for partnership opportunities and enhancements to the buildings, the public realm, and the connections there as well. And as we continue to move that forward, to be able to share that back with you when it's ready, and we're looking to have that in the spring. I'll just wrap on that by saying that decisions about any major developments in the city of Toronto, any at all, we know are best made through the city's very, very strong review processes, through public engagement with local communities, and to ensure that the outcomes are successful for all of us and sustainable. And that is very important as we consider any of these kind of ideas that are being put forward without very much detail, right? And that is something that we're looking at closely, working with city staff to get much clearer answers to, and always to be working and to defend the city's interests and the interests of our local communities and the future of our city. We need to be able to imagine a future in Toronto, and that means in every neighborhood, especially these ones that we call home. I will also just share a few additional updates, and I really thank Massimo for giving me the opportunity to share a really important update about Amsterdam Bridge. I'm really thrilled to have advanced a plan through council to restore this amazing landmark on our waterfront. It has been one of the commitments that I know we have been working together on since the start of my term, and happy to report that we're on track to reopen the bridge by early June. And I want to, yes, that is worth applause. And I really want to thank the YQNA and the community for your advocacy. The partnership with Harbourfront Centre and guiding the work has been Creatio through our friend of the waterfront, Brian Bowen, and we're very grateful for that too, and to make that happen. It is just another way that we continue to unlock our waterfront and all the ways we get to enjoy it. I also wanted to be able to share some of the other kind of exciting, fun things that we get to work on together. I want to thank the YQNA for your participation in our ferry naming efforts this past week. Thank you so much for being there. As you know, we have two larger, higher capacity, faster electric ferries coming within the next year, and those two ferries have to be named. And so it was very important to me that there was an opportunity for community to be a part of that process. So through my office, we had an open call to gather names and then to go to the ferry naming committee to see if they could advance. And the YQNA also brought ferry name ideas, and just last week the committee came together, shortlisted 10 names that will be made public very soon for you to vote on. And it's so important for me that we get to enjoy every aspect of these new ferries coming on board, because I know that so many of you have been part of that process from the very beginning. You saw some of those early iterations. You advocated to make sure that those ferries actually worked for the way that we use it, that it was an enjoyable experience for residents and visitors for generations to come. We know how long we like to keep ferries in Toronto, which is very important. And this is just one of the final pieces, but that should have our stamp on it too. And it was very important to me that we got to be a part of that as a community and as Torontonians. And so look out for that very soon. And on the ways that we get around and get through the city. I also want to continue to share some of the updates related to the Waterfront East LRT. I've been working closely with partners at Waterfront Toronto to support the continued advocacy to move that project forward. That is one that requires the federal, provincial, and city government to be working together. And you know this very well. The City of Toronto has been the leading champion on our Waterfront East LRT. And we've been able to do that thanks to all of you, because you understand so clearly how public transit, and especially transit on our East Waterfront, continues to unlock the potential of our housing, our community amenities, of learning, of jobs all along the community, that corridor. And I will keep you updated on the progress. That's a really big one that we're working on. And the final thing I'll just share, which is also very immediate to you, is the One Young development application. So just before we came here, I did ask for some additional updates on that, so I'm just going to reference my notes on that. So the application for new residential towers in the South Block came forward to a public meeting in December. How many of you were able to join that meeting? December feels so far away. And I have ensured that the YQNA and the East Waterfront Community Association did have dedicated meetings with city planning staff along with my office, and continuing to provide that opportunity as the development application continues to move forward. And I've heard some concerns about certain aspects of that development around the impacts to traffic, about how the site will be organized, and that is work that we're continuing to engage city staff in, and to make sure that that is being addressed. And that the comments from the community are being reflected back as this application comes to its final form. And for any development, especially in our growing waterfront communities, we have to make sure that we're bringing community infrastructure alongside growth. I think that's probably one of the biggest lessons that we have learned over the many decades of building and development in our downtown. And that includes, of course, affordable housing, but also amazing public realm and community facilities. And I am continuing to advance that forward. I know, the first thing in the Lower Yonge precinct that was opened was our community recreation centers. That's the kind of example that we need to continue. We opened our park in progress last year. We are on track for the new school to open there as well. And I'm continuing to work to ensure that all the amenities that create a complete community are ones that we can count on as our waterfront communities continue to grow. I know in this neighborhood, and here, one of the things that I've heard very loud and clear is also just how do we enhance our parks so that they are places that are more family friendly, where we can have play structures and other activities that really do complement what is available to us in the neighborhood, and also invites us to imagine a place to continue to grow here. And that is work that my team and I are doing to identify where that's possible, and we'll keep you in the loop of that work as well. I know I took a little bit of extra time, but I'm always happy to answer questions, and thank you all again for being here.
I have a question. I'll maybe just bellow. Hopefully everybody can hear me. The last time we went through the JETS thing, there was a lot of vagueness about the program because it didn't go to Health Canada, or didn't go to Transport Canada first. So we didn't know whether with the girders, for example, at the end of the runways, whether there would be approach lighting, whether the Western Gap would be closed to boating. It seemed likely that these things were the case, but we never found out. So we never found out really what the trade-offs and what the proposal actually contained. And so, as you know, we call for Transport Canada to deal with it first, because we believe, based on our experience before, that it is not feasible, that updates to aeronautical regulations mean that you cannot fit that big a runway in compliance with present-day regulations within the harbor. There's not enough space. And if that's true, we don't need to worry about it. So let's find that out first, I would say. And then if it turns out it can be, then what are the trade-offs? Do you have to close down the ferry? Do you have to close down the Western Gap? Do you have to shut off permanent parts of the island? So I guess I'm asking, can we get your commitment to say, let's do it the other way around. Let's find out what the actual approved runway would look like, and then have a municipal levy so we know what we're talking about instead of guessing, like we had to do for 3 years before.
Thanks, Rob. So, I mean, you've kind of gotten to the heart of the challenge about what's in front of us. We don't have details, right? We have an idea, right, that has been shared, as just that, an idea of what is required or what, one person desires from the airport. But we don't have a formal proposal. We have not seen any details. There's been no kind of even the level of detail that you described from previous proposals. That's not in front of us, right?
Just make a phone call.
No. It's a 2-year regulation process. It's not just a phone
You
call.
gotta fill Transport Canada, you said, just call
No, you can't
I
do
mean,
that.
somebody's
It's an
gonna-
enormously
Yeah,
complicated
actually, of course.
approval process.
And it should be that simple. It should actually be that simple to have an idea like this out there and to say, what are we actually looking at? What are we dealing with? Who is involved? And right now, there has been none of that information and none of those details. And what I can share with you, those are the questions that I am asking. That is the information that I am seeking. And we have not gotten that far yet. But you're absolutely right. It shouldn't be an extended process to kind of understand what is actually grounding these ideas being put out as widely as they have.
I have a question. Doug Ford threatened to take the city out of the tripartite agreement. I hope that's not possible.
Well, right now, as I said, the city, the federal government, and the Toronto Port Authority are the signatories to the tripartite agreement. And again, in terms of the details that we have, that is still the structure of the agreement, right? And again, no one has reached out to provide any further details yet about what action would be taken and what that looks like. But as it stands right now, there is an agreement. These are the 3 parties. We have worked together successfully to continue to make decisions around the airport for decades. And again, it is probably what you want out of an agreement with several parties. You want it to be negotiation. You want to work together to get the best outcomes. You want to be able to lift up and require consultation with communities that are impacted and Torontonians who care deeply about the waterfront. And that is really important. And again, that any decisions that are made about our downtown, our waterfront, and the airport have to align with our vision for what our waterfront is and what it can be as it continues to grow. Yeah, I'm just going to take a
regarding the LRT, do you know when the next report is coming forward to the committee on progress and updates and whatnot?
I don't think we have a date on that yet. I am going to turn to Tom.
There's an update that's supposed to come before the summer on
Okay.
Waterfront Transit.
So this quarter, yeah. Yes.
Any update on the Science Center?
In terms of its location, so I believe 2 weeks ago the Premier did make an announcement about Ontario Place and the Ontario Science Center, and they did unveil some, I guess, renderings of what that would look like on the waterfront. That's the last that we heard, what everyone else heard. Yeah. Yeah, just at the back over here.
Doug Ford apparently wants, from what I understand, wants this new convention center at Exhibition Place. Is there a possibility he could expropriate land, and would you be prepared if anything could be done about it?
Yeah, so as I shared with you, and I will again just quote the statement that the CEO of Exhibition Place and I put out in the fall when we first saw that in the Rebuilding Ontario Place Act the provincial government had given themselves extraordinary powers of access investment on that site. It was that Exhibition Place is city property, and any unilateral moves to seize it must be challenged. So I've been very clear about that, and I continue to hold. And again, even on that, that has been a speculation. Myself, the city staff, Exhibition Place, no one has been outreached to about this proposal. And that is kind of where that situation stands. Sorry, in the purple in the back?
Years ago, YQNA had an aeronautical engineer tell us that the problem with the island airport is the fuel. There is no way that they can make a safe place for the fuel because of the water table level. And so at that time, the fuel was stored in drums behind a fence where they had taken a drunk out of one night and a deer the next. And that's where the fuel was stored, and then they would come and get the fuel drums and set them. The idea that, and he said, if a plane came in,
We have a lot to get to, and I guess I'll summarize. There was a fuel concern before. It would have to be dealt with in a complete review of all of the safety issues to do with the airport, right? I mean, I think that's the answer.
Is that the question?
Yeah. Is that the question?
they didn't, so when we had that meeting down at the hotel,
Yeah.
and all the people from Canadian thing were there, the men who were going to be overseeing everything, they weren't concerned about it at all. They weren't concerned about it, they didn't come up with any idea.
What you've raised again, and I know that this will be.
A plane on fire hits that fuel. The aeronautical engineer said everything would be gone to Yonge Street. And I happen to live between Yonge Street and the airport.
It is so important to me to make sure that our city and our waterfront is as safe as possible, and that we have confidence in that safety. And this is home. This is a place that millions of us enjoy every single year. Our waterfront is precious. We know that. And it is a gem. It is a jewel. That's where we will all agree. And when you have something so important to, of course, our communities, but to the well-being of the whole city, we will fight as hard as we can and be the strongest advocates to protect and enhance and sustain that. And that is my commitment, and that is the work that we get to do together. And we are seeking more information about whatever this proposal is that is being kind of alluded to. And these are the types of answers that we need, because our safety, our well-being, and the sustainability and the future of our city and our waterfront really does depend on doing this thoughtfully, with the city's involvement and leadership in building on the examples that we have had literally over decades about how we work through a very complex and important site in the city's best interests, right? And that is what I can say about that. The city has proven over and over our commitment to safety when it comes to the waterfront and even the airport. That was the runway and safety area debate that we had over the last few years, and the decision that we landed on was about ensuring that that safety was a priority for us in our communities and in the operations of that airport. And so that is always where we will advocate, where we will align. And we need to make sure that the decisions that are made are in the interests of our city and our local communities, and that we have a voice in that, and that is really important. And I know Ed's here trying to...
My instructions from on high are
yes.
to give you the hook, and so we have time for everybody else. Much as we'd love totally immerse ourselves in
Yeah,
all
of
of
course.
these
And
issues. They're
I
very
appreciate that it is
complicated
such a
and
high
important.
priority. This is not the first conversation we've had about the future of the airport. I know it will not be the last, and I know the commitment of this community to each other and to the well-being of our waterfront, and we'll continue to do that work and keep you in the loop of what we're finding.
What I would suggest is that we maybe have a little meeting of some people who are knowledgeable and interested in this with you in the near future, and
That
we'll
sounds
just see
good.
what's known, what's not known,
Yeah.
this kind of stuff.
All right.
It's very complicated, that's just, we could go on forever. So we don't want to do that, we don't want to take up all your time, so thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
We got Chris Glover, and we're pleased to have him. He's got a stellar record in terms of showing up at YQNA, and we appreciate that. And I think Carolyn has got an award.
Yes.
Correct? And
Yes,
you'll speak
yes,
to that,
you did,
right?
yeah.
I wanted to make sure that that was top of the agenda. That's very important.
Okay, well, why don't we start with that? So I think everybody knows me. I'm Chris Glover. I'm the MPP for Spadina Fort York. And we just had our Community Service Awards on the weekend, on Saturday. And one of the recipients was Carolyn Johnson. Yeah. Oh, great. Stand up, Carolyn. And, you know, she's been serving this community for many, many years, including as the co-chair of the YQNA and the treasurer of the YQNA. And so this was just a way to show our gratitude for the work that she's done, and also for the work that the YQNA has done. I mean, the reason we have such a beautiful downtown waterfront is largely because of the advocacy of this organization and the other neighborhood associations along the waterfront. So kudos to all of you. Give yourselves a big round of applause, because I was just walking here, and it felt like the first day of spring. It was so beautiful. I walked over, I was by the malting towers, and there's a guy playing guitar, and he's actually very talented. He's playing Jim Croce and Billy Joel and other songs that people with gray hair really, really like. And it was just so delightful. And then people are walking by, and babies are out in strollers and stuff. And it's just, you know, it's the downtown waterfront, and that's mostly what we're talking about here is, you know, with all the different things that, you know, our premier keeps mentioning about a convention center, about Billy Bishop Airport and things. I mean, the thing that we have to keep in mind is that this is a gem. We are so fortunate to live in a city with a waterfront like the one that we've got, and it's been developed, you know, over many, many years with the input of many, many people, including yourselves. And it attracts 18 million visitors a year to the downtown Toronto waterfront. And it's a major tourist draw, and it's a major economic driver of our area. And all of these things, like before the premier sticks his nose in something that he's not even a part of, because the province is not part of the tripartite agreement for the airport, you know, you got to think about the impact. Like, what would that do to the tourism in this area? What would it do to the housing? We're going to build out on, you know, another 100,000 homes out on Villiers Island, which is now renamed, and I've got it right here, the Women Menacing. Yes, Women Menacing. Yes. Okay. And the other thing that I did on the way here, I've got a kayak now at the Harbourfront Canoe and Kayak Center, and I stopped in and just take a look at it. It's weathered, it's gone through the winter okay, and if you ever want an experience, go kayaking. Ed Hore is the best guide in the city, and he'll take you all over the waterfront. It's absolutely beautiful. Let's see, let me talk about a couple of other things. One is, and I got asked a couple of questions to speak about. So the legislature's been on a 14-week hiatus. We're meeting again in March. And the reason the government's able to do this is because they just keep bypassing the legislature. They meet for 6 weeks or 2 months, and they pass legislation. Every one of the bills is an omnibus bill. They bypass the committee level, so there's no community discussion on a lot of the bills. And the other thing is that every one of the bills allows the ministers to make decisions through regulation. So the way our legislature works is that, you know, you introduce a bill in the legislature, it goes through 3 readings, 3 votes, it usually goes out to committee and back in between, then it gets royal assent. In those bills, after the legislation's been passed and it becomes an act, the ministers are empowered to make regulations to implement the act and to implement the decisions that were made by the legislature. what the government's doing is they keep expanding the powers of the ministers to make decisions through regulations. And I'll give you an example, and I think it's the most egregious and undemocratic example, is Bill 5. So Bill 5 allows the government to declare any part of the province or the entire province a special economic zone where they can break any law that they want, the heritage laws, the environmental laws, labor laws, whatever they want. They don't have to follow those laws. In fact, they can decide who the laws apply to and who don't. So if, Ula, you're a developer and you're a developer and, you're making, we're friends, or you came to my wedding, my family wedding, and you need to bypass the, override the environmental laws, well, I'll do that for you. So it's a violation of the right, the charter right, to rule by law. Like, laws are supposed to be, we develop them through democratic decision making. Governments can change laws anytime they want. That's what we elected governments do. They can repeal laws, but they can't just override them, willy-nilly. They have to apply equally to everybody. That's the principle of a democracy. And so one of the asks that I have for you is that there's a group called Ontario Place Protectors. The Bill 5, Ontario Place, the Rebuilding Ontario Place Act was the precursor to Bill 5. And the Rebuilding Ontario Place Act allows the government to break any provincial or municipal law with the Ontario Place project. And then they introduced that, then it went to, 6 months later they introduced Bill 5. So there's a group called Ontario Place Protectors that is fighting the Rebuilding Ontario Place Act. And they're saying this is unconstitutional. It's a violation of our right to rule by law. And this is a David and Goliath fight because they are fighting against the provincial government, but they're also fighting against the federal government because the federal government has Bill C5 and more recently Bill C15 that also allows them, their ministers, to declare, that decide who and where laws apply and where they don't apply. And so this is both, they're going to be fighting against both the provincial and the federal government's lawyers. So this is something that they could use your support. So look up Ontario Place Protectors, and if you can provide them with any sort of support, they could use it because this is a big fight. And the last I heard was that this was going to the Supreme Court in September, but it's got moved up, right?
No date's been set yet.
No date? Okay. Okay, thank you. Anyway, so watch for that one. The other thing, Ontario Place. Okay, so all these things, all these announcements at Ontario Place, the Science Centre, the parking garage, the Convention Centre, in the Billy Bishop Airport, and in the fall, buried in the fall economic statement, there's a young woman, Sam Hamilton, in my office. It said, that they were expanding the Ontario Place project to include in a whole bunch of lot numbers. And so she was wondering, like, this was an omnibus bill. This was like 200-page bill, and there's a paragraph in there. So she writes to the legislative library and she says, well, what are these property numbers? Well, it's almost the entire exhibition place. And that's how we found out that Ford was taking control of exhibition grounds, which is City of Toronto property. And so that's now that and when we asked him, the media asked him, why are you taking control of exhibition place? And they said, oh, it's just because we need to access the utilities for the Therma Spa. But now it turns out, well, they may actually be wanting to build a convention center there. So never accept the first answer or expect that answer to be, cognizant with the truth. Let's see. Okay. Let's see. So, as far as building a science center down at the waterfront, that's a great idea. But we didn't have to close the other one first, and that is a real shame. And we've got a whole generation of kids that are not going to have that science experience. And Jeffrey Hinton, who is the godfather of AI and a University of Toronto professor, he actually came out and blasted Ford about his lies about the Ford Science Center because the engineer report said there's a couple of sections of the roof that are critical that need to be fixed right away, and then the rest of the roof needs to be repaired over 10 years, but they never said the building needed to be closed. In fact, 1 in 12 schools in the province of Ontario, has the same roof structure as the Science Center. And the government hasn't even allocated more money to fix those roofs. So you know that this was, it's a distraction. And a lot of these things are distraction. I think Ford is distracting everybody from, you know, funding shortfalls for our hospitals, $1 billion of cuts, additional cuts to an already underfunded system. It's, you know, and I was asked about the school system. He's taking over our schools. Ausma and I were both school board trustees before we got into these positions. And school board trustees are really, really vital resources for community members, and they also are a check on the government's power over our schools, because this government, they want to privatize education. I was in Alberta visiting a friend in Calgary who works for an MLA out there. They have 20 schools in his riding. Only 7 are public. The rest are all private. And that's the direction this government wants to go. You saw that they just appointed the C.D. Howe Institute. So they've cut $1,500 per student per year from the budget. It's an inflationary cut. And so their schools are really struggling. The EQAO scores have gone down. So instead of saying, oh, well, maybe we should restore the funding and reduce the class sizes again and you know, bring back the teachers that were cut, they're saying they're going to hire the C.D. Howe Institute to make a report on why the EQAO scores are low and how to get them up. Well, the C.D. Howe Institute has been an opponent of public education for decades. They support privatization through voucher systems through charter schools. So the report's already written. This is all just, you know, they're just trying to move towards a privatized education system. And so this is what we're fighting against, and it's what I've been fighting against. We've got a group called Save Ontario Schools, we've got Fund Our Schools. Different parents groups across the province are starting to mobilize to protect, both to protect our democratic right to run our schools, but also to restore the funding so that our kids get the education that they deserve. So those are a couple things that I'm working on. I see, final one, OSAP as well. We're working to restore OSAP. The government wants to convert grants to loans. It's grossly unfair. It'd be an additional $5,000 debt on average for every student in undergrad. And it's just unconscionable to be doing that, especially when there's $2.2 billion for a spa, there's $3 billion for a convention center, you know, there's $400 million for a parking garage, like all these things. So we need to get the government back to our priorities, and its major responsibilities, which are housing, healthcare, and education. And that's what I've been working on. If any of you are interested, I've got working groups. I've got a homelessness and housing work group. I've got a gun violence work group. We've also, you know, are working on we're working on OSAP, we're working on education. If you're interested in working with us on any of those issues, please reach out to my office. And if you don't already get it, we put out a community updates every few weeks. If you'd like to get it, just email my office, and I'll leave some business cards at the back in case you need my contact. Okay, so I'll stop there.
Okay, great, thanks. We've got Jason Thorne, who I can see him back there. There he is. Jason, I don't know a lot about. I've read some of the articles in Toronto Life and elsewhere, and I know he was working in Hamilton for 10 years. I know he's got 2 daughters, if I've got that right. And so he can tell us more about himself, I guess, and answer some of the pressing questions. I understand he's going to oust Neil due to back problems. Is that where? So you have my sympathy.
Association or something like that at the time. It wasn't a formal NA, but I was in this building talking to a residents group here about Toronto Bay issues a very long time ago. So I'm going to say thanks for having me back, although I'm sure no one remembers that presentation. What I was going to talk about this morning, I'm just going to do a bit of a big picture presentation about how we're planning for growth in the city of Toronto. There has been a lot happening in the planning world, in the housing world over the last couple of years. So I'm going to take you on a bit of a quick run through a number of the initiatives that we have been working on. And I'll start with, I guess, stating the obvious, which is that Toronto is growing. Everybody knows that. Not always appreciated just how much we're growing relative to other parts of North America. In 2023 and 2024, the Toronto CMA was the fastest growing metro region in the United States and Canada, and not by a little bit. And in 2024, we grew by 50,000 more people than the next fastest growing urban region, which was the New York metropolitan area. So we are growing quite a bit. And you can see it in the skyline. If it looks like there's a lot of cranes in the air, it's because there's a lot of cranes in the air. At the beginning of 2025, this is a chart of something called, and I know I don't expect you to read the fine print on here. This is called the Crane Index, and it tracks the number of cranes in the air in major cities. The big bar on the left there is Toronto. At the beginning of 2025, we were just over 100 cranes in the air. Number 2, Los Angeles at 40, so more than double the next most significant city. And you can see that that activity reflected on the skyline. This is the Toronto skyline 2006. If you layer on this what has been built or is under construction or has been approved since that time, this is the Toronto skyline as it's evolving in 2025. Now, we did see a population decline, surprisingly, in 2025 in the city of Toronto. Very unusual for the city of Toronto. But overall, we anticipate that growth is going to continue. We are still on pace to hit a population of about 4 million people over the next 25 years, which is still faster, actually, than the pace of growth that the province forecasted for Toronto in the provincial growth plan. So we know at that level of growth, Toronto needs more housing. To accommodate a population of another 1 million people, we're probably looking at somewhere in the range of 30,000 new homes per year, every year for the next 25 years to accommodate that amount of growth. That's the kind of magnitude that we're looking at. And we know what happens if we don't plan for that growth. We all know about the crisis we have in housing affordability. And of course, housing has always been expensive. A house is always going to be an expensive thing to buy. But what's been really significant recently is just the ability to afford housing relative to a median income. Historically, a house would cost maybe 3 times the median income. Now that's over 5 times the median income, which makes it much more difficult to access that housing. And the same is true on the rental side and the ability to people find affordable rental units. And here I'm not just talking about social housing, subsidized housing. That's obviously very, very important, but just a critical worker in our economy being able to afford rent. This chart shows kind of some different incomes of some different kind of critical essential workers in our city. I'll just take one as an example. A registered nurse, somebody who earns maybe $80,000, $85,000 a year. Based on an affordability metric, they could afford a rent of about $2,100 a month. By the end of 2025, the average rent for a 1-bedroom apartment was $2,500 a month. So that's a critically important worker we need to have in our communities. These are, teachers, nurses, care workers, and these residents being able to afford and access housing. But the need to build housing actually isn't just about housing affordability. What we actually see is a lot of uneven growth across the city. If you look between 2001 and 2021, what's the blue areas on this map, notwithstanding all of the growth that we've been seeing in Toronto, the blue areas are areas that actually showed no growth, or in some cases declining growth over that 20-year period. And so we're seeing a lot of growth in the city, but it's disproportionate. There's actually, in the last census period, the 5-year census period between 2016 and 2021, 4 wards in the city of Toronto, including this one, accommodated 93% of the population growth in that 5-year period. So we see very kind of disproportionate growth happening around the city. So that's where city planning comes in. Thinking about how much growth are we planning for, where do we want to have it happen, how are we going to line up all the infrastructure and servicing to support that growth. Now before I go into how we're planning for growth in the Toronto, it is important kind of to talk about roles and responsibilities. This is something that not everybody appreciates outside of the planning world, that the authority that municipalities have in municipal planning and planning for growth all derives from the provincial government. So our authorities, or in some cases our lack of authorities, are set in provincial statute. In a nutshell, the province sets the rules. And those rules have been changing quite a bit in the last little bit. This is not a complete list of the provincial legislation and bills over the past couple of years that have changed the planning system in one way or another. And as a result of these bills, we do now have lesser authority and lesser control over things like protecting heritage buildings, ensuring environmental sustainability, trying to seek a good urban design and architectural quality. The ability of municipalities to regulate those kinds of things has declined in recent years as a result of some of these initiatives. We also see a much more active provincial government directly zoning different properties around the province through what are called minister's zoning orders. A number of recent legislative changes have also changed what municipalities can require from new developments. So inclusionary zoning is one example, a recent initiative that would have allowed the city to require a certain percentage of units in new development in certain areas of the city to be affordable. That's now paused by the province until 2027. Other tools, Section 37, you may have heard it referred to in the past as density bonusing, the kinds of things that would require new developments provide for childcare facilities, rec centers, things of that nature. Less authority now for municipalities to do those sorts of things. Similarly, protecting employment lands from residential development. And of course, when it comes to planning, kind of overhanging everything that we do in municipal planning is the Provincial Ontario Land Tribunal, that any applicant has the right to appeal their application to that tribunal. So it's important to keep that in mind as we think about what municipalities can do to plan for future growth. In Toronto, like in all municipalities, the official plan is our primary policy document, setting out where we want growth to occur, how we want growth to occur, and then nested within that official plan, there's a series of neighborhood plans or area plans. Planners will typically call them secondary plans that provide more specific direction on a neighborhood or an area basis. And the good news is that most of the growth we've been seeing recently is occurring in the areas that we've planned for that growth to happen. So again, I don't expect you to be able to read all the fine print on this slide, but the first row is proposed units, the next row that are under review, the second row is under construction, and the bottom row is built. And in blue is those units that have built in one of our planned growth areas. So about 75 to 85% of the new units that are built or under construction or proposed are happening in those planned growth centers. So what this says to me is that planning matters. How we set out our plans, where we plan to have growth happen, it matters. It has an impact on where that growth ultimately occurs. So the challenge for planners right now, and the challenge for municipalities, is to think about, okay, what does that next 25 years look like? Where's that next million people going to find a place to live in our city? And that conversation is changing a little bit from maybe what the last 25 years looked like. The last 25 years where we had more growth concentrated in small areas of the city, largely in high density development. What we're trying to plan to do now is to plan for what we call housing across the housing spectrum. Everything from a small laneway suite or a garden suite on the left, all the way through up to high-rise development. We want to make sure we have lots of different type of housing opportunities for people of all different types of housing need. And so I'm going to start with a couple of planning initiatives that we've had in each point in that housing spectrum. And I'm going to start at the kind of the lowest density scale, what planners often call gentle density. This might be garden suites or laneway suites. You've probably heard in the newspaper about multiplexes, 3plexes, 4plexes, 5plexes, 6plexes. That scale of development, typically 3, maybe 4 stories. Historically, about 70% of the residential areas in the city only permitted single detached housing, which meant that the other 30% had to accommodate everything. That has really changed. Over the past couple of years, we've been creating new permissions for this kinds of gentle density. So on the left, in yellow, is the areas of the city that used to allow, and when I say used to, I'm only talking like 3-4 years ago, used to allow gentle density, multiplexes, garden suites, those sorts of things. On the right is what it is today. Essentially, all residential properties permit that scale of development. As a result of that, we could see over the next 25 years, maybe 123,000 units built within that sort of gentle density in neighborhoods in those smaller multiplexes. That's about 10% of maybe 5-10% or 10-15% of the housing we're going to need over the next 25 years. Of course, not all of the growth is going to get accommodated at that scale, so now we go a scale up. Mid-rise housing. This is an initiative that was approved by council in 2024, identified all of these black lines across the city as major streets that now permit 6-story, 60-unit mid-rise buildings as of right. So again, creating more parts of the city where more modest densities can be permitted. Let's go up a scale in density now. what we call taller mid-rise buildings. So now we're talking maybe 6 to 12 stories. Those have historically been allowed on what are called the avenues. And in 2025, council approved 282 kilometers of new avenues around the city to accommodate this kind of taller mid-rise scale of development. So if you look at that kind of mid-rise scale, before 2025 on the left here, these are the areas of the city that would have permitted that mid-rise scale. Now on the right, as a result of those new initiatives, much more of the city where we can have that scale of development. Towers, of course, are going to continue to be a part of the urban fabric of the city, continue to provide some of the housing that we're going to need. Most of that, or a lot of that, will continue to be identified in what we call our traditional urban centers, in the downtown, in Midtown, North York, Scarborough Centre, Etobicoke Centre. Two of those areas in 2025, and actually just a couple of weeks ago, now have new secondary plans for how they're going to accommodate growth. And then another major initiative that we're working on right now is what are called major transit station areas. In August, the province approved 120 major transit station areas all over the city. Now, a major transit station area, this isn't a bus stop. This is your LRT stops, your subway stops, your GO stations, and these areas now have mandated higher densities that are required. We have those policies in place. We'll actually be bringing forward updated zoning to council within the next couple of months to permit higher density forms of housing there. And then we have some major growth centers as well, and I won't spend too much time on this, but Downsview, Woodbine, 84,000 new home potential at those two locations. And of course, this room will know very well the amount of growth that is being proposed for East Harbour and Portlands as another major growth area within the city. So if you add all of that together, over the last 3 or 4 years, which to a planner, that's like a blink of an eye. 3 or 4 years is nothing. In that short period of time, pretty much every parcel of land in the city that permits residential development has been either redesignated or rezoned through one of those initiatives to provide more opportunities for housing. And I'm going to kind of just take you through a bit of what does that look like across the city? So again, here we're showing in yellow where multiplexes used to be allowed 3 or 4 years ago. Today, much more of the city. Now we go up to that sort of mid-rise scale, these sort of 8, 10, 12-story buildings. This was the avenues that had existed a couple of years ago. As of 2025, we now have many more avenues for that type of development. Then we layer on the major streets where you can have those 6-story, 60-unit buildings, and then areas where we'll have taller buildings around those transit station areas. So you can really see a different evolving urban structure in the city of Toronto over the next 25 years than what we have seen historically. So, I've talked a lot about housing, and we do talk a lot about housing and planning. It's a very hot topic. We know we have to build a lot of housing, but it's important to stress that it can't just be any housing. And what do I mean by that? Well, one thing I mean is that we need housing across the affordability spectrum. We need rental, we need ownership. We need everything from shelters, long-term care, affordable ownership, affordable rental, all the way up to market housing. We need public as well as private housing. In Canada, only about 3.5% of housing is publicly owned or owned by not-for-profits. Globally, the OECD average is more like 7%. So we have a long way to go. This is actually why Toronto launched the Toronto Builds program, to start to leverage city-owned lands and city funds to create more public housing or not-for-profit housing. We need to protect the affordable housing we already have. This is a bit of a scary stat. For every new affordable housing unit that we create in the city of Toronto, we're losing 10 from what were affordable units in market housing that are being lost through renovation or redevelopment. So protecting what we already have is really important. Toronto's got a very unique program called our rental replacement. If you're demolishing a rental building in the city of Toronto that's more than 6 units, we require you to replace those units, same size, same scale, similar rents, in your new development. That program has protected over 4,000 units for the last 5 years. We have a program called MURA, multi-unit residential assistance program, where the city will provide funding for community groups to purchase market rental buildings that have been historically affordable to protect the affordability within them. We need housing for young families. Another bit of a scary stat on this one is, so households with children have declined from 43% in 2001 to 37% in 2021. We're losing young families in the city of Toronto, and that's a really concerning trend. So we want to make sure that new development is creating units that are appropriate for young families. We have something called the Growing Up Guidelines that tries to get 25% of new units in new buildings to be 2 or 3 bedroom units so they can be appropriate for young families. New housing needs to be green, needs to be sustainable. We can't be solving the housing crisis on the back of the climate crisis. That's what the Toronto Green Standard is all about. Over the last 15 years of the Toronto Green Standard, it's helped reduce GHG emissions by almost 1 megaton. Buildings and housing is responsible for half of the GHG emissions in the City of Toronto, so programs like this are really significant. Needs to demonstrate high quality design. A lot of the work that we do in municipal planning is to review development applications, looking at design, looking at architecture, trying to ensure high quality design. It needs to sensitively integrate with our existing built heritage. We've got 9,000 designated heritage properties in the city. These older buildings need to be part of the future. We don't want to just be demolishing and starting over. And when it comes to heritage, my view has always been it's not an either or. It's not either we protect the heritage or we build the new development. We've got, over the last 5 years, 17,000 of the new housing units built in the City of Toronto were built on properties that had heritage buildings. They found ways to integrate the heritage as part of the new development. So that's a really important part of the work that we do. And I'm watching my watch, and I'm trying to go as quickly as I can, but it's important to say our plan isn't only about housing. When I first started in the job, and I had my first meeting with the mayor a couple of days in, and one of the we of course I asked her, what are the priorities you have for the new chief planner? We of course talked about housing, big priority for the mayor. But what she stressed with me is it can't just be about that. It's not just about the quantity of the housing that we're building, it's about the quality of the neighborhoods that we're creating. And we can't lose sight of that as we're trying to plan for all of this growth in the city. So our planning isn't only about planning for housing, it's about planning for employment. And we've got some good news here. We track a development pipeline of all of the applications that are coming through the city. There's over 10 million square meters of new commercial, new employment development in our development pipeline. This is jobs for Torontonians. Part of our planning work is to try to protect some of those employment areas. So it's shown in purple here, over 7,000 hectares of land across the city is protected for employment. And these areas really do a lot of the heavy lifting for jobs in the City of Toronto. It's about 11% of the total land base, but a quarter of all of the jobs in the city, about 30% of all of the businesses in the city are in these purple areas that we try to protect through our planning policies for employment. We're planning for shops, for local services. A lot of the new development that we approved, we require them to do retail, commercial in the ground floor. One of the council approved late last year a new neighborhood retail initiative to re-allow something that historically was allowed in neighborhoods, corner stores, cafes, small shops in neighborhoods that for decades zoning had prohibited, not just in Toronto but in cities across North America. We're now inviting these kinds of uses back into our neighborhoods so that the people moving there have a place to buy a bag of milk. Of course, we work with our colleagues in Parks and Recreation to make sure that we're planning for new parks for all of the growth that we're expecting to see. Parks right now has 200 projects, park and recreation facility projects in the planning, design, or development stage. And we also work with developers to find ways to create smaller parkettes, plazas, piazzas, sometimes like a pedestrian connection through a new development. It's what we call a POPs. It's privately owned, but publicly accessible spaces. So it's still private land, but we have public easements across it. So it could be a seating area, these kinds of small little urban public spaces. We try to find ways to integrate those into new development. We're looking to expand the urban tree canopy. This is not at odds, in my view, with the amount of growth and development we're trying to create in the city. New development has to prepare tree protection plans to protect trees that are already there. Where trees are cut, we require replacement of those trees. Planning for mobility. Fun fact, now this is kind of a very rough stat, but if you're going to add 1 million more people to the city, you're probably looking at about 2 million more trips. So moving a city of 4 million people 25 years from now is going to be very different than moving a city of 3 million more people. To put that 2 million more trips in perspective, I have the stat here somewhere. The TTC carries about 1.3 million trips per day, and we got to figure out a way to add 2 million trips. Now, that's where the investments in transit become really important. This is a graphic that I like to use. It's from a group called NACTO, a North American Transportation Officials Organization. And it looks like just how you move large volumes of people efficiently through a city. And what it's saying is that if you take a typical like 10 feet of pavement, a typical lane of pavement, and you try to move people in private vehicles down that lane, you can move about 600 to 1,600 people per hour. You run transit down that lane, 10,000 to 25,000 people per hour. You put those people on bikes, 7,500 people per hour. So we have to think about the corridors that we have in the city for moving people and think about what are the most efficient ways to move people through those corridors, and thinking about how we're going to accommodate that 2 million more trips. I do want to talk about this. I'll end with a couple of slides here in terms of some of the things that, not just planning for housing, because this is really important to me. I think it's really important to our city to think about our city is growing, we're adding all of this population, we're adding a lot of jobs, but are we adding joy? Are we making our cities lovable and livable? That's a really important part of what we do. I like this quote from Christopher Hume. Some of you may know Christopher Hume, the former architecture critic at the Star. And he said that culture is to the contemporary city what roads, sewers, and bridges were in the 19th and early 20th centuries. I love that statement, because essentially what he's saying is culture is infrastructure. Art is infrastructure, just as important as the roads, just as important as the sewers, just as important as the parks. And so we have to plan for those things as well. We do that sometimes with new development. This is Crow's Nest Theatre, which is a theater that we worked with the developer to integrate that new performance space as part of a new development. We work a lot with developers to create opportunities for public art. Since 1990, we've had developers have contributed over 300 public art installations around the city as part of new development. And then we try to create those spaces directly as well. In city planning, in our urban design program, we have a civic improvements fund that looks for ways to create small, interesting, joyful public spaces around the city. Does anybody know Pier Giorgio Ciccicco, the former poet laureate for the he was a former poet laureate for the city of Toronto. And again, one of the quotes he had, he wrote a wonderful book, and this quote always stuck out at me, that a city that has taken the time to dress itself well, is aware of itself as a work of art, and is beautiful to its citizens. That's part of planning too. It's not just about the houses and the roads and the buildings and the transit and all those sorts of good things. So finally, I'll end here to say we don't do this alone in city planning. The official plan is very important in shaping the growth of the city, but it doesn't work alone. We work with a whole bunch of other divisions across the city on the net zero strategy, the parkland strategy, the economic development strategy, to make sure that all of those critical city initiatives are aligned with the growth that we are anticipating. And we work a lot with communities as well. We work with residents, with neighborhood groups, with advocates, builders, stakeholders. But between city planning and our colleagues in development review who process the development applications, those two divisions undertake half of the consultation that the City of Toronto undertakes on everything. So we are out a lot in the communities doing talks like this. I've had the chance to meet with all sorts of different neighborhood associations to talk about growth and the challenges and the opportunities that brings. So with that, I will end there and say thank you very much.
We maybe have time for one or two questions. We got some others. Ula.
Yeah, I want to ask Jason the importance of moving people efficiently through the city, from work to home and so forth. Is it wise to put so much on the waterfront? I mean, the convention center, the spa, the Harbourfront Centre, the airport, everything is on the waterfront. And sports arenas, and it gets really jammed up already. We have a big problem sometimes with gridlock. So is it possible to spread some of these goodies around the city?
So this is one of the most transit-rich areas of the city. So yes, in my view, it does make some sense that this is an area where we want to accommodate a lot of that growth. But also, yes, we do need to be looking at other parts of the city. And that's what I was trying to get at with some of those earlier slides about things that historically Toronto, and frankly all cities in Canada and North America, have not allowed. Things like garden suites and multiplexes in neighborhoods has not been allowed for a really long time. They're now allowed across the city. Those smaller scale mid-rise buildings, 6, 8, 10, 12 stories, we've created lots more opportunity. Those weren't allowed in very many places for decades. So we've created a lot more permissions for those types of buildings. And then there's there's 120 major transit stations around the city that we think are appropriate areas to accommodate higher density growth. So yes, I think there is opportunity in other parts of the city to accommodate some of that growth.
I think we're just gonna have your question because we just,
Okay.
yeah, go.
When is the 200 Queens Quay garage going to be built? It was down
I will have to call a friend on that one to see when that is under construction. Is that, is, I thought it was, but I don't know if Erica at the back is able to answer that one or not.
It's under construction.
Marguerite, one more. Quick.
How can you make, so what I noticed coming from Europe is that too many people are still bringing the car in the city, even if they have the possibility to take the train and even if they don't need it for mobility issues, just for convenience and because they're used to it. How are you going to get this solved that it becomes for the people who don't need to take the car to move around, that it becomes like inconvenient for them, so that they don't come and cause a gridlock?
I think you start with the carrots, and the carrots is actually transit investment. And I think it's good news that we're going to see more transit built in the city in the next 10 years than we saw in probably the previous 50 years. Unfortunately, we got a lot of catching up to do because there was quite a period of time there where we weren't investing very much in transit. So I think we've got to offer those kinds of alternatives for both for people coming into the city and people moving around the city. Another one I say is one of the big changes we made in the City of Toronto planning a couple of years back was we used to require all of that new development to build parking. And when you build parking, you are going to have people move into those units and bring their cars and then use those cars to get around. We don't require that anymore. We don't prohibit it. You can still provide parking if as a developer that's kind of what you need in sort of to market your units. But we no longer mandate that in most situations that you have to provide the parking. That's part of that shift towards other ways of moving around the city, which we're going to have to really take on if we're going to grow to a city of 4 million.
Okay, thanks so much, Jason. We know you're a busy guy, and we appreciate you coming very much. Thank you. We won't get the Waterfront guys, but just briefly, we hope to have our MP Chi come, but and she is not here, but she has sent Elhana. Have I got that right? No? Yeah. Do you want to come up and say a word, or just quickly?
Thank you. Hi everyone, good evening. My name is Ilham. I'm here from Impeachment Union office. As you know, she is in Ottawa from Monday to Thursday evening. We will have, I know all of you have so many questions. MPP was here from city, we have someone. So if you have any question in federal level, so we will have a town hall. It will be virtual. And you can follow our website and also our newsletter. So we will have this town hall soon, and you can join us. And if you have any question, as I mentioned, in the federal level, so impeachment will love to discuss this with you. Yeah. So I'm just here to mention this, that we will have a town hall soon.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that a town hall with a subject matter, or just general?
Regarding the airport.
The airport, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll look forward to that.
Thank you so much. Thank
All
you
right.
so much.
Thank you. We've got Ray and her friend, whose name I unfortunately don't know. Patrick, that's right. Who are going to talk to us about Airbuses and planning for boats zooming around the harbor.
SeaBuses. I was just going to say, we talked a little bit about airspace, we talked about land, now we're going to talk a little bit about water. Hello everybody, my name is Ray Tasaka, Director of Urban Design with Waterfront Toronto, and I'm here with...
Sorry. Hi, I'm Patrick Meredith Karam. I'm the Senior Manager for Transportation, also at Waterfront.
So really happy to be here to give everybody a brief overview of our Marine Strategy Initiative. Specifically, if you can go to the next slide. I'm just going to move backwards here so that we're not blocking. We're going to talk a little bit about the 2020 Marine Strategy. Some of you may have been involved in that initiative, that report. And then we're going to talk about the SeaBus feasibility study that we concluded late last year and released the final report, I believe, January of this year. And then lastly, the East-West Water Shuttle pilot, program that we are going to launch this year. Next slide.
Next slide.
Oh, sorry.
And next slide again, sorry. That was just a title slide. I don't know if everybody can see the small letter, but this is just an overview of the 2020 Marine Use Strategy. So in 2020, we updated the 2006 Marine Strategy. So there used to be an old Marine Strategy, but since then, a lot has happened. As you know, on the waterfront, it had been almost 20 years. So we updated to reflect that landside development and also as ways to think about waterside planning in advance of land use planning together. So the three sort of bubble diagrams that you see, we kind of thought about marine strategy under three topics, mooring, management, and movement. And I just want to concentrate specifically tonight on the movement, which was about how do we get to the water, on the water, and across the water. Some of the key recommendations that came out of this 2020 Marine Strategy was to create a Marine Coordination Committee. So this is various agencies, including Waterfront Toronto, CREATO, Toronto Port Authority, Harbourfront Centre, Toronto Regional Conservation Authority, who have responsibility for the waterfront, managing and operating. Providing more temporary docking opportunities. We know that temporary docking on the central waterfront is quite limited. So one of the initiatives that we started was the Kiss and Sail pilot program, which was at Young Slip. We started that 2 years ago. We just concluded the second season last season, whereby private vessels up to a certain size could pick up and drop off family and friends free of use. And lastly, what came out of the movement of expanding water transportation was conducting a feasibility study of a SeaBus system that would service more water-based commute or water-based transportation across the water. Next slide. So this is what we call the future potential water transportation map. So this is part of the 2020 report. And essentially what it showed was the opportunity around expanding not only just from the central waterfront to the islands, which is a north-south movement, but also expanding the water-based transportation on an east-west direction. So imagining connecting water-based transportation from, say, Ontario Place in the future, somewhere near the Billy Bishop, to the central waterfront and over to the eastern waterfront, where we're seeing developments like Okwemiminising, and future developments in the Portlands. Next slide. So then in 2025, we did this SeaBus feasibility study. Some of you may have been involved in this initiative. I just want to present a bit of the results from that finding. Next slide. But just before that, providing some of the objectives of the study. So again, we were looking at whether some of the water-based transportation network that we see in other waterfront cities like Amsterdam, Chicago, Copenhagen, where they have very extensive water-based sea buses and aqua buses and so forth. Also, you can see in Vancouver and Halifax. Could that be feasible in Toronto? So the study really looked at determining whether a fixed route permanent SeaBus system could happen on our waterfront. So the feasibility study involved things like looking at how the Toronto water transportation works currently. We also modeled projected passenger demand on 5 potential SeaBus routes today and in the future years. We looked at operating costs for different scenarios, and then other opportunities to improve marine services on the waterfront. Next slide. Basically, the key findings was that the success of the higher capacity fixed route SeaBus system will really rely on increased demand in the future years. So it really depends on how much landside development can happen. These developments, both residents, workers, visitors, will really happen once those developments happen. So in the eastern waterfront, the planning is still mostly on the planning stages. So as the development happened, these water-based transportation will also be feasible. The study also suggested that a phased approach is feasible, so implementing a permanent SeaBus system from day one is quite risky. We have to understand how many people are going to use this, where the stop should be, so really understanding the demands, the schedule, what type of capacity of vessels we should implement is really important in understanding that phased approach. So what we came was the three-phased approach, which is in the early phase, we would implement an east-west water shuttle, so a smaller vessel service that would service some of the east-west points across the waterfront. And then around 2030, we will look at the SeaBus service, piloting that. So all of these are pilot projects in the inner harbor. And if the demand is there, we would then install a permanent larger SeaBus system somewhere 2035 and beyond. And I'll hand it over to Patrick to talk a little bit about the east-west water shuttle pilot that will happen in the near future.
Thank you, Ray. Next slide. So I'll talk a little bit about the first step that we're taking as Ray mentioned, this kind of first stage to test this new model of marine service on the waterfront, trying to give an option to transport people east and west in addition to the kind of north-south focused service that we see today going to the island. So we're working with our partners at the City of Toronto and the Toronto Port Authority on this water shuttle pilot initiative. The planning is well underway. We're into the procurement and implementation stage. And the idea is that we will build 2 new docks on the waterfront, one at Portland Slip and one on Oquayman-Minising, and that we will connect these together with the central waterfront through a new east-west focused water shuttle service. I'll give a little bit more information on the service and the locations, but the overall goal that we're working towards is to have this up and running so that people can ride it and experience this kind of first stage of new east-west focused water transportation this summer. So this map shows the service. As mentioned, the idea is to try to test out this new model where we connect the west and the east with the central waterfront by water. So the red dashed line shows the rough route of this new service, so this water shuttle service that would connect these 3 locations. These 2 new docks will also give an opportunity to expand our existing water taxi system that provides service to the Toronto Islands. Next slide. The 2 new locations are shown here. On the left, we see the new space at Oquayman-Minising. That will be just beside the existing River Park North, which opened last summer, within Promontory Park South, which will be opening this summer. On the right, we can see our location at the Portland Slip, which will give access to just off Queens Quay, near the Island Airport. Next slide. So, sorry, the print is a bit small, but in terms of schedule, we've been working at this initiative for about a year now. We started last summer with a kind of pre-design study to test out these different dock locations and see what the impacts would look like, where this would be feasible. We worked towards a procurement process that kicked off last fall to find an operator, someone who would build these docks, run them, and provide the new service. And now we are just wrapping up that procurement process. This month, we are awarding the contract to the successful proponent. We'll be building the docks this spring, again with the goal of being up and running for the summer.
Do you have to pay?
Yes.
For the east-west, do you have to pay? There's a fare? Okay.
There will be a fare,
Is
yes.
it like a taxi, water taxi type boat or different?
It would be likely a water taxi type boat. The vision at this time is to basically test the market for this service. It is a shorter term pilot, so the intention is to have this kind of first stage that'll be 3 to 5 years long, and we'll give an opportunity to see what the response is, see how many people demand the service, and then reevaluate from there.
I have a question about the payment you just mentioned there. When you see you look like examples in other cities. In other cities, these services on the water are part of the public transport. So I would expect for the SeaBus to use my DTC Presto card.
So that is something actually that's been thought about, and it was part of the SeaBus study that that Ray spoke to in the longer term vision. Definitely, we saw integration with transit, both from like a wayfinding perspective and a fare payment perspective, as something that could really attract people to this system and make it a part of the really city regional transportation network. It's not something that we have as part of this first kind of short-term phase, but certainly it's in the vision.
Pam?
Yeah, I'm just wondering, how many people will the SeaBuses carry? And right now, the water taxis use great big gas-fueled outboard motors. How will these be fueled? Will it be electric motors or gas?
So at this time, again, it's a shorter term kind of initial stage pilot. We're looking, quick launch for the summer and a first service period of 3 to 5 years. So that will rely on using existing vessels and existing operators. Again, there's opportunities to have electric propulsion. That's something that's been looked at again for the later stages. But at this time, it's really focused on kind of water taxi sized vessels and from existing fleets.
Sure.
So I was just wondering, where is the location of the dock on the west side? Is it in the Western Gap, which is, and how big is
Go
it?
back to the slide that was.
So it's within the Portland Slip. So just east of the Western Gap, right on the west dock.
These are the malting towers. And so it's here, it's where the pirate ship used to be.
Yeah, I believe 2 seasons ago there was a dock there that I think Pirate Life was there with some Muskoka chairs, et cetera, and last season there was it was not there. So we're looking at a similar location to that west wall.
And the same size?
We're not 100% sure exactly the dimensions, but we just want to make sure that there's enough space for different, water taxi vessels to be able to dock there at a time, so that's still being sorted out.
So this is obviously seasonal?
Yes.
Yes.
You were showing a map with the Western Gap and the Eastern station, so to speak. Where was the central location going to be?
So we're relying on proponents to bring a central location. So basically, the operator who's going to be running the water shuttle service would use an existing dock on the central waterfront. It'll depend on who's
the sundial location would be ideal. There's not much going on there.
Right.
It's just it's basically, it sounds like it's just the water taxi, just gonna go
Pretty much.
from down by Portland Slip over towards Uquaman instead of going to the island and other.
Yes, I think the key feature with this proposal is that we would be,
Sorry.
the key really feature of the East-West Water Shuttle is that we would be requiring the operator to provide a minimum level of service for a bit of a longer term commitment here. So it has a bit more dependability than just a water taxi service, that it will be available to people on a regular basis for this period, so we can get a real gauge of demand.
Tell them not to crash into any kayakers. We don't like them run over. Please, one more question.
All right, well, thanks. I just wanted to know, is this, okay, two full questions. Was there a finding that there's actually a need for the east and west? And how, did you guys not study the environment? Like right now, I don't know, the water taxis are polluting the water significantly. And if we want the waterfront to be beautiful and be welcoming, I don't know, was there any studies done to say the impact of this? So, A, question, was there a need that this is answering to a need? And B, in an environment where we're moving forward, how was it that you think still existing methods? And yes, I really want to know in what terms when you start bringing electric, but the ferry is already becoming electrical, so how is it that that would be really important?
Definitely. So the question, I think, was around both the demand, if there is a need for this service at this time, and what the impact would be on the environment of having these boats. I guess through the study, the focus was definitely on what drivers would cause this demand, and we saw that the emergence of major destinations such as Okuyama-Minising, the new Badasque Park on the eastern waterfront, as well as demand coming from the western waterfront into downtown, are these kind of new destinations coming online that will bring a lot of people, and as we look towards the medium or longer term, there's a lot more coming. And I think together with the volumes of traffic that we see on Queens Quay, the extent of congestion, and the, I think just challenges that people have moving east and west on the waterfront, together with the impact, of course, on the environment and on air pollution coming from traffic, there certainly is a need to prepare to provide in the longer term, and we think test in the shorter term, an alternative means of transportation. Certainly, I think on a per passenger basis, if we're able to get a good number of people using this service, there is potential for efficiency from an emissions perspective, and there's opportunities in the longer term to build towards a system that would be sustainable, that would have potentially electric propulsion.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, guys, for coming. So I guess we'll see how it goes, and no doubt people will be allowed to say, I love it, I hate it, or whatever, next fall or whenever, okay? We don't have Tim Coker from BIA, but we have Dorsa, who says she just has a couple things to say.
Thank you so much. Save the best for last, right? Yes, Tim sends his regrets, but we're just here with some community updates. This weekend at Harbourfront Centre, we will have Sugar Shack, so kind of a maple candy festival. If you're interested, there's information on our website, waterfrontbia.com. And next weekend is a sort of a Toronto Islands community event called Island Awakening, celebrating the spring equinox. So just not a lot of details. I know there are some musical performances and other performances scheduled, but there will be more information once we have more. It's not until next weekend, so we'll make sure to update our platforms on that. And on another note, we're conducting an event strategy for a waterfront-wide kind of event strategy that the Waterfront BIA is working on. I think Tim has emailed Neil. Yeah, okay, if not, he will, but he has, to kind of consult and see from the residents' perspective what is missing, what is needed, and we're consulting with other stakeholders at the waterfront as well to kind of create a cohesive event strategy and a long-term strategy for events on the waterfront. That's it for me, but if there's any questions, I'm here. Pretty short. So.
Thank you, that's great. It was short too, that's great. We get to the most important speaker of all of our evening, and that's our treasurer, Marguerite. And she may mention the donations box. Hold the box up. Very important to see everybody see this box. I always like to say that it's like when you go to church, there's the collection plate. If you don't put money in the plate, you don't know what's going to happen. So it's the same at YQNA. Okay. But Marguerite will tell us where we're actually at now.
Thank you, Ed. So I'm going to report on the finances from last year, if you go to the next slide. So when I took over as a treasurer, we had $2,248 in the bank, and the expenses in 2025 were $990, and we got an income from $787, which is all donations. And I would like to thank everybody who contributed, either in cash in the donation box at the in-person meetings or online via our Square account. And then I also listed how the expenses came together. We spent $565 on Zoom, and we have to say that it's the webinars, when the Zoom meeting is online, it's always a little bit more expensive than a normal Zoom meeting. Then the website is $270, bank and Square for the Square up, the fees are roughly $40, and there were some miscellaneous for $115. So that are the finances for last year, and I encourage you to donate so that we keep
going. Thank you very much. That's great, I think. Julie? Oh, Julie, of course, I'm so sorry, I forgot. She's got some police-related announcements for us, I think. I got that right?
You do.
Okay.
Hi, everyone. I just want to make a pitch for a new program. So I represent YQNA on our Community Police Liaison Committee for 52 Division. So if you're not aware, we do sit in 52 Division. And we are privileged to have neighborhood community officers in our waterfront. And that neighborhood team is looking to kickstart a program called ProAction Kids and Cops. It's a way to build positive relationships between our city's youth and the police. So for any of you who have school-aged children, age 6 to 12 in particular, or know people that do, that reside in our neighborhood, we'd love to have you come out. They've partnered with the Radisson Hotel, so it will be hosted here after school, roughly on a monthly basis, possibly moving to semi-weekly if there's enough demand, but it would be an ongoing program. So you'd essentially enroll your children to come out and meet with and engage with the police in fun activities on a monthly or possibly every 2-week basis. So if you are interested or know people that you think would be interested, by all means come up to me at the end and I can take your contact information because they're very interested in understanding what the potential demand for the program is. Thank you.
I think that's it. We have actually 5 minutes to spare before 9 p.m., so we're all getting out of here a little bit early. But we thank everybody for coming. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.